Leaders from around the world have offered their well wishes and congratulations to Donald Trump over his transition to power. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted his congratulations several hours before the inauguration ceremony.
Congrats to my friend President Trump. Look forward to working closely with you to make the alliance between Israel and the USA stronger than ever.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered congratulations to the new President of the United States, suggesting they work together to restore prosperity for both nations.
Canada and the United States have built one of the closest relationships between any two countries in the world. The enduring partnership is essential to our shared prosperity and security.
The spokesman for Canada's Foreign Minister, Joseph Pickerel, also said Ottawa is confident that the new U.S. administration will see that Canada's partnership with the U.S. mutually strengthens the two nations and provides real opportunities to grow their respective economies. Pope Francis urged Trump to show concern for the poor, the outcast, and those in need. British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson also congratulated Trump, saying he looks forward to continuing the strong UK-US bond. Mexico's president said that he would like to strengthen ties with the United States. However, he maintained that Mexico's national interests are his main priority.
Sovereignty, national interest and protection of Mexicans will guide relations with the new government of the United States.
But not everybody is optimistic about the new development in the White House. Germany's Vice Chancellor, Sigmar Gabriel, said Trump's election was the result of a bad radicalization. He noted that under Trump, Germany has to prepare for a rough ride. Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, also warned that the anti-trade policies championed by Trump risk sparking a protectionist movement that could severely damage the global economy. She added that any uncertainty surrounding a Trump presidency would probably yield more instability in financial markets.
President Donald Trump's first full day in office met by one of the largest inauguration-related demonstrations in U.S. history. A sea of protesters, mostly women, marching on Washington today. Organizers and other officials claiming big turnout. And not just here in the nation's capital, millions marched in cities around the country, from Los Angeles to St. Louis, Chicago to Boston. And take a look at the map. Those protests dotting the nation. An estimated 670 events taking place worldwide.
Hillary Clinton took to Twitter to thank women around the country for attending the Women's March. The former Democratic presidential candidate tweeted Saturday morning, "Thanks for standing, speaking, and marching for our values. Important as ever, I truly believe we're always stronger together." In honor of the Women's March, Clinton also tweeted an image of 3 women holding flowers with the caption, "Hope, not fear." The former Secretary of State was in attendance at President Trump's inauguration Friday. Clinton also took to Twitter then, writing, "I'm here today to honor our democracy and its enduring values. I will never stop believing in our country and its future."
At the massive demonstration anchored by the kind of A-list celebrities that snubbed President Trump.
Welcome to the revolution of love.
But those thousands bearing placards with individual messages like girls just want to have fundamental rights and strong women equals strong world.
Streams of humanity are basically converging on this sea of people wearing pink beanies, all of them moving towards the White House.
Scenes like the march in Washington repeated across the country. Demonstrators coming out by the thousands. ABC's Mara Schiavo-Campo at one of the biggest rallies in New York.
Here in Trump's hometown, organizers say the crowds are exceeding the 150,000 people expected. The turnout so large, the city has to open up additional streets.
We're all fighting for the same thing, equality.
A very early indication of just how forceful the Trump administration is going to be when they feel something is being reported inaccurately by the media. Moments ago, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer gave his first official statement from the briefing room. It wasn't actually a briefing because there were no questions taken. It actually was an attack on media reports about the size of Friday's crowd at the inauguration and the placement of decor in the Oval Office. Earlier today, President Trump ripped the media crowd size assessments during an appearance at the CIA, calling them lies. Then a short time ago, Spicer lashed out to reporters.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
I think, Brett, that President Trump and his press secretary have laid down a marker that any time they see something they do not like, they are going to aggressively counter it.
The leaders of the biggest anti-establishment parties of Europe have gathered in Germany earlier today. Here are some of the ideas they expressed about how they see the future of the continent then.
We need to rethink and reshape Europe.
Patriotism is not the policy of the past, it's the policy of the future.
People are fed up with politically correct elites.
Our leaders no longer guarantee the basic principles of European democracy. We don't believe the European Union is a leading power any longer. Why is the establishment not asking the people what they are worried about? We are not afraid to ask.
A big change is coming soon, as the European Union has become some kind of religion where no criticism or alternative is allowed. Germany has had an overwhelming flow of migrants, and Chancellor Merkel was so keen to accept them. Thousands were brought to the communities without their consent. How can they accept this? How can we accept increased unemployment and rising insecurity and terrorists coming in among the migrants?
Of course, we're also worried that we're going to be the victims of Islamic terrorism. If we do nothing, we will no longer exist. We now see success is possible, and we welcome the success of Donald Trump in America.
The Kremlin spokesman says Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to meet with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. However, Dmitry Peskov noted that it takes months, not weeks, before a meeting can take place. He added that it would be a big mistake to think that Russia-U.S. relations will be free of contradictions and disputes during Trump's presidency. Trump was sworn in as the 45th president of the United States on Friday. Washington-Moscow relations were at their lowest since the Cold War under the Barack Obama administration.
Two major powers in the world, there is no way for Russia and the U.S. to coexist without differences and conflicts. Successful developments of bilateral ties will depend on our ability to solve these differences through dialogue.
Peskov also pointed at the challenges posed by the intricacy of nuclear arms control, the complexity of the situation in Syria and other issues. Earlier, Trump said that the US would only lift sanctions against Russia on the condition that Russia agreed on the reduction of nuclear weapons. But Peskov said nuclear reduction can't be disproportionate because the composition of the nuclear arsenal in the US is different from Russia's. He said any symmetric reductions are absolutely unacceptable and inappropriate.
The Turkish parliament in a final vote has backed a controversial reform bill to boost President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's scope of power. The bill was passed with 339 votes in favor and will be put to referendum for final approval. Ankara had already said that it would exhaust all efforts to change the constitution and to expand the presidency's executive powers to prevent a return to fragile coalition governments of the past. The reform seeks to grant Erdogan extra constitutional privileges and prerequisites, which have been the long-time demand of the incumbent president. But critics fear that they will fuel authoritarianism.
It was only 3 years ago that Istanbul was voted the top destination by online travel site TripAdvisor. Now the picture is quite different. Hit by a string of attacks in 2016, Turkey has become known as a target for terrorism. The country's vibrant cosmopolitan Istanbul among cities struck, including a shocking attack at the Reyna nightclub on New Year's Eve that killed 39 people. Many Turks are feeling anxious and have made changes in their daily habits, avoiding crowded areas. The economy has also been affected, with the lira hitting record lows against the US dollar.
But it's not only locals who are concerned. Turkey is home to thousands of foreigners, and many of these expats living here are feeling similar emotions. Some have even decided to leave, partly due to terrorism.
The first driverless electric shuttle in the U.S. has been tested in downtown Las Vegas. The oval-shaped shuttle, developed by a French company, can run up to 40 kilometers an hour and has room for 12 passengers. The shuttle implements technology such as GPS and cameras to detect its surroundings, pedestrians and traffic signs. The vehicle has no steering wheel or pedals, only a computer monitor that allows its users to select a stop when they want to leave the shuttle. The company has other similar shuttles running in countries such as France, Australia and Switzerland.
An American university has unveiled a robotic assistant that claims social awareness and a new level of interaction with people.
So, I can send you a message through the top link private message app to remind you of the details of the session, or you can just jot them down or take a photo of the screen. Would you like me to send you a reminder?
Yes, please. Please send me.
Okay.
The socially aware robot assistant, or Sarah, was prominently displayed at the World Economic Forum. Sarah was created by developers from Carnegie Mellon University. She can interact with people through capturing facial expressions such as nods, frowns, and smiles on top of speech and intonation recognition. The robot's ability to dig deeper than words reportedly guarantees a thorough understanding of a person's social intention.
This human-like robot could eventually get some of the same legal status as, well, a human. The European Union is toying with the idea of giving robots a certain amount of personhood under the law. That doesn't mean you'll see robots staging civil rights marches. Some of them have enough trouble walking on their own. But it does mean companies that create them would be liable if something goes wrong. Whether we're talking about autonomous vehicles or a machine that's only job is to be your friend, robots are becoming more sophisticated and are increasingly involved in everyday life. Some officials want protections like a registry to know who owns what robot, a code of ethics that includes kill switches, and even an EU agency for artificial intelligence research. Before any of this happens, those who back the draft need to figure a few things out, like what exactly defines a smart autonomous robot. Even after that's sorted out, officials could decide to ignore the suggestions. Still, rules like this are worth thinking about as robots become more and more independent. We don't need an uprising a la iRobot.
You like that? Chile is under a state of emergency as more than a dozen large wildfires threaten towns in the center and south of the country. A heat wave and high winds are fueling the flames, which have already scorched some 50,000 hectares of land.
Winter storms are sweeping across the country this weekend. Waves of snow and rain are hitting the west. In the south, a deadly tornado tore through Mississippi.
When the relentless storm finally cleared, it revealed the destruction from a powerful tornado that struck Hattiesburg, Mississippi in the early morning hours. At least 4 people died. 20 more were injured. Jimmy Harrell and his wife Rose could hear the ominous sound.
It got louder and louder the closer it got. It got louder and louder.
And we got in the bathtub and covered up. Rescue crews searched for victims trapped in collapsed buildings and homes, and more severe weather is expected to hit Mississippi tonight. They're also bracing for another round of storms in the west. Flash floods in Arizona. It's part of the same storm system that dumped snow in the Sierra and drenched lower elevations in California. Overwhelming a levee near Hollister, where water flooded farms and homes for the second time in a week. In Santa Barbara, floodwaters swept cabins and vehicles down a coastal canyon, and 20 campers were rescued.
We just watched it go like this and then flow right into where our picnic tables, the fire pits.
One of the biggest concerns now is the burn areas. In July, a massive wildfire north of LA consumed 18 homes and more than 40,000 acres. Those hillsides can no longer absorb water, sending mud and debris onto roads. Homeowner Virginia Brown.
I have never seen anything like what came down that canyon.
After what happened here Friday, Jeff Haberstad is bracing for more.
It's supposed to be about 50 to 100% more than we got yesterday.
That caused this mess?
That caused this mess.
Workers have already cleared out this creek here to make way for the water they know is coming. Up to 4 inches of rain is expected tomorrow. And DeMarco, the National Weather Service, says it could be the biggest storm to hit Southern California.
Unusually bad weather in Southern California on Friday prevented Barack Obama and family from landing at Palm Springs International Airport. Instead, the Obamas touched down about 50 miles west at March Air Reserve Base in Riverside. It was early Friday afternoon after Donald Trump's inauguration that the Obamas boarded the plane in Washington, D.C. However, due to poor weather, the plane spent more than 30 minutes in a holding pattern before it decided to land elsewhere.
Desperate times. It's small relief from the drought. But for Somaratna Fernando, he has no other choice. He can't drink the water in his home. It's too salty. Water levels in rivers have fallen so low that seawater is flowing inland and contaminating supplies here in the Kalathura district, south of the capital, Colombo. When supplies do arrive, people try to collect as much as possible. The lack of rain last year is badly affecting water supplies. Tens of thousands of households have no water to drink and rely on bowsers like this one. With rains not expected for another 2 to 3 months, the government is warning of worsening shortages. Reservoirs are running low. Some are now down to a fifth of their capacity. Weather forecasters say there could be worse to come.
This is one of the worst droughts since 1970s.
The farming community says it doesn't know how it will cope with no water, destroyed crops, and mounting deaths.
In Birmingham, breathing a little easier tonight after a complete stranger answers their prayers.
Last night, we told you they were struggling to pay for a loved one's funeral. Hannah Ward caught up with them today to hear about the blessing they received. Hannah?
Yes, a blessing indeed, Steve. The family of Rasheem Porter faced the possibility of having to cancel his funeral after exhausting every resource to raise funds. They were still short. Last night, when we shared their story, they had 12 hours to make the funeral payment. Once seemed like no time at all, but it all paid off in perfect timing. For Rasheem Porter's family, Thursday night was an evening of deep heartache.
Trying to get loans, doing payday loans, and it just wasn't working out.
Relentless effort.
And I said, you know what? We just gonna see. We pray and let it go.
That turned into faith. The same kind of faith that Mike Green has. For Mr. Green,
well, we always watch Fox News.
It felt like a normal evening.
This story came on about, this family trying to bury their cousin.
Despite his own life struggles,
I felt like God was talking to me.
Which turned into a long evening of making phone calls to see how he could help a complete stranger he saw on TV.
When I got the call, I talked to Mike Green. I would never forget his name. And he told me he was going to take care. He was going to help my family. And
she was crying, and told me, Mr. Green, you don't know how much I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And I said, well, hon, I just felt like God was telling me to help you.
Today, these two strangers met up.
You're so welcome, sweetheart. And I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much.
We're all God's children.
Mike Green gave the family more than they asked for. He covered all the costs for the burial.
You pray to the Lord, and He will answer you. He hear your prayers. And He helped my family. That's what happens. You don't let go. You don't let go. You keep faith. That's what it's all about.